Good morning. Excuse me. I guess I wasn't ready. Wait. I just scarfed down my breakfast. I ate too fast. Okay, sorry. Good morning, guys. How are you? Hey, Carla. Hey, Terry. Hey, Judy. Who'd I miss? Did I miss anybody? Dang, I'm choking on my breakfast. I guess I should have waited a minute longer before I hit the button. Okay. You ready for more Phil Spector? What are you barking at? Travis said she's saying good morning too. Hey, Jelly Bean. No, I ate too fast, I guess, and then immediately hit the button and. Because I didn't have my. That's what it was. I didn't have my protein shake this morning. I had scrambled egg sandwich. I'm not used to having solid food. I'm used to a liquid breakfast. Oh, she has to go out. That's what it is. Because she ate food. She thinks I'm like, what happens, Bella? Does the food instantly turn into pee? She thinks every time she eats food, she has to go out and go pee. So, I don't know if you guys saw my short that I uploaded yesterday evening. Remember yesterday when we were watching the trial, I got all excited because the behavior panel was doing Jen McCabe. And I've been wanting them to do her. And I got so excited. So I'm kind of on the fence about body language analysis because they always say you have to take it in clusters. You can't just take one action because it could be their norm, right? You know, like people always say, well, if they're crossing their arms, they're defensive or they're hiding something, but it might just be they're more comfortable crossing their arms. But I have watched the behavior panel for a couple years now, and a lot of what they say I agree with, but there are times when they are totally wrong. Or there are times that they're right, but it's ridiculous. Oh my gosh. I was so mad. And I was watching it in the bedroom. I had left my phone in here. And when I watch YouTube on the TV, I chat on my phone or my iPad, and they were both in here. I come storming through the house to come get my phone. Travis is in the living room. He's like, what? What? And I'm like, those idiots. So, like, I'm just livid. So he gets to listen to me rant. And then I go in there and I got my phone and I'm like, and so then this morning, for some reason, I decide to look at the comments on the behavior panel video, and then I get mad all over again. I'm like, I should not have done that this morning. I really shouldn't, because now I have to stream and I'm pissed. Don't argue, children. What are you arguing about? Stop it.
With the dog.
Oh.
Next door. As they go home, she couldn't find him, but I seen
Oh, well, then never mind. That's good. I thought that was her and Spike barking at each other. She's barking at.
He's in the bed.
Oh, she's barking at the dog. Okay. Good girl. I'm sorry. Ooh. Can I shoot them? Are they in our yard? I don't know how to use a gun. I don't even think my gun is loaded. Of course it's not loaded. It's in a drawer somewhere. I don't even know where it is. I don't even know if we have bullets for it. I just know that if I call animal control, they're not going to do anything. I have told them about the dogs and what they did to the next door cat and all that. Thank God, I don't want them to kill any other cats. Those cats are just minding their own business. They're not hurting anybody. It's sad. I also don't like seeing buzzards lined up on the fence. That was creepy. They were like every fence pole had a buzzard on it. And they were taking turns. One would jump down and eat on the cat and then Okay, so anyway, they got to the part where Alan Jackson was talking about her grand jury testimony, where she did not say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, when it was, I could have hit him. Did I hit him? Is he dead? Did I hit him? Could I have hit him? And she never once said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. And they didn't get to the part where she said, well, it may not be in there, but I know as I'm sitting here today that she said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him. They didn't get to that part. They just said, like when she said, I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Can you clarify or can you restate or whatever she said? They stopped right after that and they were like, usually if they ask to repeat the question or clarify the question, it's because they want to be helpful and tell the truth. They don't have a manufactured answer ready to go. I think she's been around cops. And I was like, you think? Yes, she's been around cops. Her brother-in-law is the cop that murdered John O'Keefe. Yes, she's been around cops. The cop's lawn that they left him out there to die in the snow. I was like, oh my God, what the heck? Yes, she's been around. And I just quit watching it. I was like, I cannot watch this anymore. And I was so excited for them to do it. I was like, I just can't. I can't. And I love 3 of the guys. It seems like it's always Mark. And I know they come at it not knowing the case because they want to come at it as just analyzing the body language. I understand that, but there are some of the things that they say, it's like you need a little bit of background. You need a little bit of background to understand. Yeah, you would have known that. If you'd known a little bit of background about the case, you would have known, yeah, she's been around cops. And one of the other interviews that they did, because I've done, I think, 2 other Karen Reed videos, and one was her interview, and Mark was like, I don't understand why they're talking about a broken taillight. That's the whole case. Like, oh my God. Oh my God. So I'm starting to agree with all the people that are like, body language analysis is crap. Maybe it's not the body language analysis. Maybe it's just the way they go about it. I don't know, but the last one I watched, though, I think from some of the things that Chase said, I think he thinks she's didn't do it. But I don't know. It just really, really made me mad. I think she's been around cops. Yeah, you think? I tried to find the placeholder for jury instructions today for the battered and burned trial, and I don't see them. And I really, really wanted to watch jury instructions because I don't think I've ever seen jury instructions for an arson case. And the thing in closing about, like prosecution was saying about misstatement of the law, and the judge was going to clear that up in jury instructions. I really wanted to hear that too. And I don't think we're going to get to see that because there's no placeholder from Court TV or Law and Crime. So I guess they're not going to stream that part. So I was all ready to do like Verdict Watch today. I was going to stream that and then do like we were going to court hop or something for Verdict Watch. So since there's not a placeholder, I guess I don't even know how to watch for Verdict now. So I guess we'll just do Phil Spector today. And I know Judy usually keeps apprised of other things that's going on around YouTube. So I guess Judy's on Verdict Watch. Does that sound okay, Judy? I mean, I guess I could do it too. I can't do it on the computer. I can do it on my iPad because for some reason, anytime I try to do anything else on the computer, StreamYard goes haywire. So, Kathy on Court Vibes, the past, I think, two or three mornings. Well, no, not 3 mornings. She didn't stream on Wednesday, but like Tuesday, I guess. She has said that her StreamYard keeps giving her error messages. So she's having trouble with StreamYard. And Judy told me that Melanie Little's been having trouble with StreamYard. So it's not just me, it's StreamYard. And I really, really appreciate you guys hanging in with StreamYard and all its whatevers it's doing lately. Because I'm hanging in there, but it's really ticking me off that, and they keep changing stuff and adding stuff, and it's stop because you're screwing everybody up, StreamYard. It's aggravating as all heck. Okay, we're still on Steve Renteria. There's 2 more parts of his testimony, so we have about 2 more hours of him, and then we're gonna get to Jane Lintemute. I'm not sure how you say her name. And I don't know who she is. It doesn't say. It's just got her name. Bring
from Lana Clarkson at the coroner's office, and I would like Mark next in order and
I shared my screen this time. There it is. Yay.
evidence receipt that bears the name J321612. May I have it marked next in order?
Quadruple, quintuple Z.
What's next, guys?
Okay, and Mr. Renteria.
I hope he says sextuplet and doesn't abbreviate it.
Yeah, this is a photocopy of we call it a laboratory receipt. Whenever a piece of item comes into our laboratory, it gets tagged with a special receipt number that will follow it in the laboratory. until it's released to either the agency that submitted the detective.
Swabs that you talked about, giving a mixed DNA profile consistent with Mr. Spector and Lana Clarkson.
Yes.
And I want to go back and I want to pin you down a little bit on the point, the likelihood that it's somebody else other than Mr. Spector in the sample. But first, I want to clarify that Ms. Clarkson was the majority contributor to DNA in that left nipple swab sample. Is that correct?
Yes.
And are you familiar with how those swabs are collected as far as, what's used to do that type of collection?
No.
Okay. The swab that you got, that was done by Ms. Well, we'll hear from her, but basically then eventually it gets to your laboratory, this whole kit, that's one of the items in it. Was it a swab that we used?
Yes, it was a swab from that particular sample that I used for the DNA analysis.
Okay, and before you DNA had some possible blood on it or not?
Yes.
Okay, and did you do that in this particular case?
Yes, I did.
And what was your result?
If I may refer to my notes, I might have to look at my case file. Let me...
KM with a minus, would that be a negative? But go ahead and...
No, my report has a section that says a positive presumptive blood test, and for that particular sample is not mentioned, so I can infer from that the KM test for the left nipple swab was negative.
Okay, and in fact you tested the right swab also, the right nipple swab, but that came back positive for blood, is that true?
Yes.
And it came back basically to just Lana Clarkson's DNA only, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and no mixture in that right sample, is that true?
Yes.
And the same thing with, well, let me ask you this, with reference to the left swab that we've been talking about, the statistical likelihood that it would be somebody else's DNA other than Lana Clarkson as being the major contributor, what would be the likelihood of that, Mr. Renteria? Could you give us a statistical calculation as to that?
Yeah, I think I gave that. I'll give it again. The frequency of occurrence with the two assumptions,
Okay.
where there's only two donors on that left nipple swab, and one of which is Lana Clarkson.
See, I want to know the frequency or the likelihood that that's her DNA as opposed to somebody else's, just her alone, or can you?
Oh, I did not run that calculation.
Okay.
Since that sample was from her body, it's an assumption that the major donor, which is consistent with her types, is in fact her DNA.
Okay, so you don't question the fact that it's her DNA at all, is that correct?
That's correct.
And then basically you try to, you basically came up with a calculation that was a likelihood that was greater than the world population. You would get another profile the same as Mr. Spector's.
Well, it's not matching Mr. Spector's. It's the likelihood of finding somebody else other than Mr. that could have donated those foreign types found on her sample.
Okay, and basically your testimony is that you'd have to test more than twice the world population before it would be likely that you would come up with a random person that would have the same profile as Mr. Spector in this sample. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what the number means.
Okay, and not to press you, but I'm going to press you. You don't think that's Mr. Spector's DNA? You can't say that conclusively to this jury?
No.
Okay. Now, you also, as a forensic scientist, and you've been doing this for over 20 years, haven't you?
Yes.
Okay, and when you first started, they didn't have DNA testing, they had just serological testing. And one of the first types of tests that was done in the serological days was the ABO, the blood type. Is that true?
Yes.
And that's not done anymore because DNA is more definitive. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
But one of the tests that they used to do for serology, saliva or not, that was one of the types of serology type tests that one could do. Isn't that true?
Yes.
And one of the tests that was utilized back in the past and is sometimes even utilized presently is what's called an amylase test. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And that's essentially where you take a little bit of the sample and you put it on a starch medium and you intubate it or heat it up, and it may the substance may eat the gel, and then that might give you an indication it might be saliva. Correct?
Well, your description has a lot of flaws in it, but
Trying to make it simple.
there is an assay that we have that can detect if amylase is present. And finding amylase is not absolutely proof that saliva is present. However, amylase does occur in higher concentrations in saliva. Other body fluids may have it, like blood, semen, vaginal secretion. It's just most of the time in saliva it occurs at a higher level.
Okay, and actually there's an assay or way you test for amylase, isn't that correct?
Yes.
And you tested for amylase in this case, in this sample, this left nipple swab. You did that, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And you came up with a positive result. Is that true?
Yes, a weak positive for the left nipple swab.
Okay. Now, when you look at samples such as the left nipple swab, do you ever try to visualize the type of cellular material that's in the sample itself?
Yeah, part of the procedure that we have as an option is to look, to take a portion of that sample once we extract whatever is on the swab. In other words, remove whatever was on the swab. Take a very small portion of that, and just a small portion, put that on a microscope slide. Stain it with certain stains, biological stains, then look at it under a microscope and basically try to observe any possible cells that could be present.
Okay, and do you use like a Christmas tree type stain? Is that the type of stain you use, or something else?
No, I use the hematoxylin eosin, H&E staining.
Okay, and what that will do is it will stain different cells to look differently so you can differentiate cells. Is that true?
That's true. It helps us pick out certain points on a cell where, in turn, will help us identify what types of cells might be present.
Okay, and did you do that with this left nipple swab at all?
I believe I did. I'd have to look at my case file.
Can you please do that? And
Yes.
You use the term NEC in your notes. What is it? When you look at your notes, see if you use that term.
Okay, I've indicated that particular smear on the slide that I made. I did not observe any sperm cells. There was some miscellaneous debris that usually occurs because of the swab material. You get some fibers from the swab actually that come off and go onto the slide. And I did see possible epithelial cells. But the staining wasn't strong enough for me to say absolutely those were epithelial cells present on.
Would an epithelial cell be the type of cell that would slough off in a person's saliva and mouth? Is that the type of cell you might find?
Yeah, that's one source within the human body, like the nasal passages, the mouth, the urethra on a penis, that vagina, vaginal secretions, rectal sample. All of the linings inside those areas have what are called epithelial cells.
Okay. Like any nucleated cell in the body would have DNA in it?
Yes.
Okay, and that would have in that particular cell if a cell was present in an epithelial fashion. Is that true?
Yeah. If there was one intact cell with the nucleus, it would have the entire DNA within that one cell. It wouldn't.
So now I have to set up the stream.
Your testimony that you gave regarding Ms. Clarkson's wrist swabs, they were also part of the collection kit that you were given?
Yes.
Okay, so when you were asked about that by Mr. Jackson, that came out of the same kit that the left nipple swab was, is that true?
That's correct.
Okay, and were you able to, you mentioned that as is that true?
Yes.
And about this just briefly, I want to go through them. The left inner wrist swab, that was one of the ones that was tested, is that correct?
Yes.
And did it have a lot of different locations where you identified somebody that could be Mr. Spector?
No.
Any type of a likelihood that it's Mr. Spector versus somebody else's DNA in that particular swab?
Yes.
Okay, and what was it?
Again, it was the same type of frequency estimate where two assumptions were made, the same assumptions, two people, she's one of them. How many other
This morning, it feels like a Monday. Man.
I'm sorry?
Could be more than two people in this particular sample, is that true?
It was consistent with two people, but yes, one could say it would just was 1 in 26. Donor wrist.
Okay, y'all are making very good observations, but I cannot put them on the screen because StreamYard is being this morning.
Okay. Now, with reference to that particular swab, the left inner wrist swab, did you also do a Kastle-Meyer test on that?
I believe I did.
And was it positive?
Yes, it was.
And when you have your notes out, the left outer wrist swab, was it also positive for Kastle-Meyer presumptive blood test?
Jill, it's Friday.
Yes, it was.
And your right wrist swab, was it also positive for blood?
Yes.
Okay, so all three of the swabs that you got DNA results on were positive for blood that were collected. Is that correct?
Correct.
Mr. Renteria, I want to ask you some follow-up question about the pants that you tested, and you were shown a picture of some inside out of a pair of trousers, and this is 4.14 would be marked next in order.
Sextuple A.
Sextuple A.
Sextuple A.
Short. You see this exhibit here, Mr. Renteria?
Yes, I do.
And this is one of the ones I think was shown to you as one of the people's exhibit. And basically you see on one side of it, this would be the left pocket on this side, correct?
Yeah, it's turned inside out already.
Right, so you turn it inside out, it's still, this is the fly, right, where the zipper is.
Right, correct.
Okay, and you see these little,
Yeah, I'm just trying to picture turning my pants inside out. And
okay. I'm going to avoid saying that same thing.
Yeah. Please don't picture that. No,
Keep it to yourself.
It's out of my mind. Although Mr. Cutler was thinking about that right now. I think. No, let's, this is the blood here that you tested that came back to Lana Clarkson, is that correct?
Yeah, I think that would be the left pocket.
Okay.
The outside surface of the left front pocket.
Okay, and then, and basically you saw, there was some, I'm not going to show another picture, but there was other stains in that pocket too, is that correct?
Yeah, this picture here is a poor picture to represent the blood that was present on the inside of the pocket. I believe there's another picture that shows a lot more staining that was present.
Right, on the flip side behind here, correct?
Inside, not behind it.
Oh, I see.
Actually, inside. If you pulled that pocket out from the inside, then you would be seeing the inside surface.
Okay, and my question is that do you think, based upon what you saw there, that the blood was deposited on the inside of the pocket versus the outside of the pocket as shown here?
It was more consistent if you saw the inside of the pocket as being deposited on the inside.
Okay, and that's the test. You tested several areas of the pocket to confirm it was Lana Clarkson's blood on the left, in the left pocket, inside the left pocket, basically.
Yes.
Okay. Now, did you look in the right pocket at all?
Yes.
And did you see anything that you collected as a stain that you thought might be blood?
No.
Okay. Now, these pants were a pair of Hager black slacks type pants, is that correct?
Yeah, if I refer to my notes real quick.
Okay. Expandomatic Hager is what you have in your notes, so whatever that means. It's page 33.
Oh, you have a page number. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, one pair of black Expandomatic Hager pants.
Okay, and did you, when you were looking at this item, did you do that with Dr. Harold, or did you do it on your own?
I believe I recall that we did it together because, again, she was doing the reconstruction part of this case, and we were, she may have noticed the stains before even I did, and with her help, we selected a subset of the stains that were present to go to further DNA typing.
Okay, so all the stains that you collected were from the left pocket area of the clothing. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay, and basically she screened it for the entire garment, the leg. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Okay, and doing this microscopic analysis that you described, is that true?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did you look at the rest of the garment to see if there was something you thought might be blood other than this left pocket area?
I did look at other areas on that particular pair of pants.
Did you? Let's talk about just any blood on the outside of the pants. Let's say the front of the pants, the back of the pants, the sides. You know, did you see anything that you thought might be blood?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said any other biological materials.
Yeah, I want to kind of limit it to blood for
just blood. No, I didn't see any.
Okay, so did you look at what would be the outside of these pants? Let's say, you know, the pant legs in the front or on the side, the back, you know, places
Yes.
like that. You didn't see anything that you thought would be blood that might be testable?
Or relied on Dr. Harold's microscopic identification of blood.
Okay. and I'm going to, but I'm going to ask you to look at exhibit JJJJ, 4 J's, and another exhibit, and I'm going to be asking you about what you described in one of your reports as tooth material, possible dental material, okay?
Do I have that, Jeff?
It's right here.
Okay.
Thank you, Jennifer. I need that right now. Because I'm really getting mad at StreamYard. Every time it crashes, it says, please let us know if this continues to happen. We're here to help. No, they're not. Because when I email them, I get like a form letter back that tells me the reasons why this could be happening. And it's none of those reasons. Because I now have 2 gigs up and 2 gigs down on my internet, which is the fastest speed available, which is more than I should need to do this. And I am hardwired in with an Ethernet cable. There is no reason. And this is the only thing that I'm running. Absolutely the only thing. I've got YouTube pulled up on my iPad. There's nothing else connected to internet in the house. Nothing.
Yes, that's looking inside the foyer, basically standing at the threshold wall of the lower stairway.
And basically, this photograph is by the back door. It has an item number 4, which is some type of a latch from the door, correct?
Correct.
Well, it's a latch?
Yes.
Okay, and item 5, material.
When I pause the court TV feed, it comes back. And then I go to play. A few minutes later, I get a screen of nothing again.
Basically, you documented as in your report as far as its collection, is that, and wood fragments collected from the rear foyer door.
Correct.
Okay.
When it gets going good, though, it does great for a while. But when it glitches in a row. Boom, 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 boom. I don't know.
Okay. And you were the one that was responsible for documenting the number of particles and the type of and also correct?
Outside the door. I don't know if they did that on first, or if they had me look at it once they pointed out and I put a number down. I don't
Okay.
recall what the steps were.
Or Mr. Kyle could have saw it.
And the number was...
The next, if we could have a picture of the stairs exhibit, I think it's, hold on a minute. Four L's, L, 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 L. This is a picture of the stairway at the residence, and the bathroom would be over to the right, correct?
Correct.
And over here you can see the 4 and the 5, but not very well. Is that true?
Yes.
And then you see here 2 other markers. That's 10 and 11, but you can't really make out the numbers very well. Is that true?
That's true.
Now, these markers were already down about the time that you got there. In other words, these were identified, and you saw these upon your arrival at some point, correct?
Correct.
And were they, the markers were there, to your knowledge, before Mr. Kyle actually physically got there. Is that true?
I believe that's true, yes.
Okay, and the way it works at the death scene when something's being investigated, such as this, is that the detective sometimes will look and mark things or tell you things are there, and then eventually they get tagged with a number. Is that true?
That's usually how it works, yes.
Okay. Now, you gave some testimony regarding the coat that Mr. Spector was wearing, or at least the coat that he was purported to wear that was found in the bedroom or the dressing room upstairs, the white coat. You tested a number of stains, item 19.
Yes.
And some of those stains came back as having a mixture of Lana Clarkson's DNA and Mr. Spector's DNA. Do you remember giving that testimony?
Yes.
Would it be unusual for somebody that owned a garment, a coat, to have their own DNA on that coat?
No, it wouldn't be unusual.
.109. Ask that this be marked next in order.
6 tuple B.
If you could look at this picture, Mr. Renteria, and ask if you recognize what's in this particular photograph.
Well, it appears to be a photograph with somebody standing at the second floor railing, pointing the camera almost straight down onto the foyer of where Miss Clarkson was seated. And then you could also see on the bottom of the orientation now the steps of the stairway.
Okay, and so you see item 11 here, basically in 10 here, is that correct?
Yes.
And those items were eventually collected, is that correct?
Correct.
And now getting back to the photograph, you see it looks like LA investigators, and they've got their jackets on, is that correct? If we could highlight this portion here.
Yeah, LA coroner investigators.
Okay, and this particular photograph shows a number of people in white shirts, 3 people in white shirts. Who would they be?
I really don't know. I think I recognize Detective Lillianfield, which would be the person with the white shirt on the top right of the photo.
Right here?
Yes.
Okay, and then two other...
Kneeling down with the gloves on appears to be Detective Katz, K-A-T-Z. And I'm not sure about the individual on the left.
Okay. Now, the person that's holding what appears to be a weapon or gun, that person has or can you tell in this photograph what he's holding?
No, I believe the other person on the left is, his hand is blocking.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see the gun there.
Okay, let me ask you this question. Basically, at a scene like this that was being investigated, everybody that was picking up an item or touching an item should have been wearing gloves. Is that true?
Yeah, if it was an item that potentially was going to be analyzed for DNA, and if you were going to actually use your hands to grab something, it's always a good idea to use gloves so you don't get your own DNA possibly on that item.
Okay, and basically, because if you touch it, you might end up getting some of your DNA on it, correct?
It's possible. Like if you touched an area that had no other body fluid in it, you can possibly produce, we call it touch DNA, to touch the item and possibly leave enough where it might be detected.
Okay, and if you, even if you're wearing gloves, if you touch somebody or you touch yourself while you're wearing gloves, then you touch an item, you can do the same thing, even though you're wearing gloves. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so let's say that somebody wearing gloves wiped their brow or was wearing the gloves for a period of time, maybe sweating, and they touched another part of their body, they could inadvertently transfer a small amount of DNA to an item.
That's possible.
Okay. Now, you talked about being careful to sample some items because you were looking for saliva, like you mentioned the rims of the glasses, the tops of bottles and so forth. And was that because that some of those items were being sent for other forensic identification work?
Yes.
Well, what forensic identification work was being considered?
I believe for those items, the glasses and the bottles, they were going to be, or had already been, I'm not sure, again, the order, sent to latent prints, the chemical processing department, to look for any possible prints on those items.
Like, for example, when you looked at the holster, do you remember whether it had been processed for prints at that time or not?
Yeah, I don't know if the holster was or was not
Okay.
processed.
Now, were there any people that worked for your latent print section of the laboratory, were there any of those people that were at this investigative scene on the 3rd of February of 2003?
Yes.
Okay. Was the scene, in general, did they do any latent print processing of furniture, walls, things of that nature?
I don't know either way.
Okay. Specifically, that bureau that is right behind the person that is at the top of the photograph here, do you know whether that was a process for latent prints?
I don't know.
Are you able to look at an item if it's been processed for latent prints and tell whether it's been tested? In other words, do you see the black powder at all, or?
Sometimes. If there's depends on the type of substrate it is. If it's a really white item and they're dusting with black powder and they used a lot of it, sometimes you can see the powder. But I've also seen items that have been processed where there's nothing visible as far as powder residue left. Mm-hmm. So on occasion you can tell.
Okay. And you don't have any record or recollection of that in this particular case, is that true?
That's true, no recollection.
Okay. Do the latent print people do something other than just look for latent prints?
Yeah, I think I described yesterday that the individuals from the latent print section are also trained to take photographs at the crime scene, which they did here, and also to do sketching of a crime scene, and I think that's what one of their responsibilities was at this scene. So it's not just latent prints.
Okay. Did you take measurements at this scene where various things were at particular times or anything such as that?
No, one of the latent prints personnel was responsible for the measurements.
Okay. If I could have a minute, Your Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Renteria, we talked at length about evidence that was collected from Ms. Clarkson's sexual assault kit that was collected by Ms. Lintemuth. Did your laboratory also receive a sexual kit that was collected from Mr. Spector that you had anything to do with?
Yes.
Okay, and did that have a number of samples in it also?
Yes, it did.
And did you subject any of those samples to DNA testing?
Yes, I did.
Okay, I want to ask you about a particular sample. And that sample has to do, it's referred to as a scrotum sample, something that's basically swabbed from the scrotum area of a person's body. You familiar with that type of sample?
Yes.
And when you've seen these collection kits, I take it you see those on a somewhat regular basis. Is that true?
Well, unfortunately, male rape kits, if we had a case of an alleged rape, let's say, and somebody is arrested, it's not very frequent that a sexual assault kit from the suspect will be collected. We're seeing a little more of it now with the forensic nurse practitioners are doing a really good job, and the investigators are doing a good job getting suspects to a hospital to get this evidence done, but it's not routine. Yeah, I hope it is routine one day, but we do see them.
Okay, and basically, looking at the female kit, certain things are collected. With the male kit, certain things are collected that are, some are the same and some are different, obviously.
Different parts, yes.
Different parts of the body?
Yes.
So would it be true that one of the male collection swabs that is in the kit is this area of the human scrotum under the penis?
Of the male scrotum, yes.
Male scrotum, okay. And basically, these kits have prepackaged swabs in it, and basically the nurse that is doing that is, knows how to collect it from the appropriate area. That's the way it works. Is that correct?
No, not necessarily. The kits that we have are general sexual assault kits, so the nurse practitioner would have to have been trained to know what type of samples to collect from a male. We don't have an envelope that says scrotum, collect here. They would have to take a swab that hasn't been used in a new kit, collect that sample from that area, then label the box that the swab.
Okay. Put together and they're labeled like that?
That's right.
Okay, and did you receive a kit that had Mr. Spector's name on it and information regarding, the taking of that type of sample?
Yes.
Okay, and basically the nurse that is that does this has some type of training generally in doing that. Is that true?
That's true.
Okay, and was this a nurse? Did this nurse fill out forms associated with this kit?
Yes.
Okay, and for example,
That calls for hearsay, unless he was there when the nurse filled out.
Sustained, it's stricken, the jury's admonished to disregard the last answer.
Okay, well, without saying what's on the form, did you get a form that was filled out
Yes.
regarding Mr. Spector? It had his name on it. It was.
Yes.
Okay, you logged it in as evidence at the sheriff's department, correct?
It was the form was part of the kit. It was inside the sexual assault.
Okay, how did you get it? Did somebody leave it on your son law enforcement to you? How did it come about you get it?
The investigator in this particular case, the investigators and gave it to him personally in the laboratory. Then it was recorded within our evidence tracking system with the lab receipt number.
Okay, and who was that investigator?
If very quickly.
If you could give the page. Fournier? Do you put that in your report typically?
Not typically. I received the kit on February 5th, 2003 from Detective Katz.
Okay. And the kit itself had some type of inventory where forms were filled out that are typically sent along with these kits. Is that true? In other words, there's a standardized form that comes with it?
Yeah, the form we were previously talking about was inside the kit.
Okay, and in the kit were a number of items were packaged and labeled. Is that true?
Yes.
And I want to get to the one that had the scrotum swab kit. Did you do a Kasselmeyer test to determine whether or not there was any presumptive blood on the scrotum swab?
Let me see if I indicate that in my report, otherwise I'll have to go to my notes. Yeah, yes, I did. Negative results for the Kasselmeyer, the KM test, were obtained for the scrotum sample.
And did you then analyze the sample to determine whether or not you could develop a DNA profile?
Yes.
And did you, as a result of, you went through each step, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with the sample, is that correct?
Yes.
And were you able to successfully get a profile that you could later compare to other people?
Yes, I was.
And was it a single person sample, or did it have more than one person's DNA in that sample?
It was consistent with a mixed profile, consistent with 2 individuals.
Okay, were there several DNA locations that showed more than 2 alleles?
There were 6, more than 2. I'm sorry, let me recount that. There were 4 of the 9 DNA markers I tested for in that sample that showed more than 2 alleles.
Okay, so by by definition, since, again, we get back to the inheritance thing, one from each parent, when you see 3, you know that there's got to be more than one person contributing to that sample, correct?
Yeah, I think that's what I said. It's consistent with 2 individuals.
2 individuals, and did you calculate a frequency or a likelihood as to that second person? Well, first of all, let me ask you this question. The majority of that sample came from the presumed donor of the sample, Mr. Type, correct?
Correct.
And this one presumed to be Mr. Spector because they took it off his body, basically.
That's correct. It'd be expected.
Expected to he not only have his DNA where it was found, but he was the majority contributor. Is that true?
Yes.
Then you actually looked at the minor contributor. That was foreign to Mr. Spector. Is that true?
That's true.
And did you do a likelihood or a frequency as to the likelihood as to how rare that frequency was?
Yes.
And what was the number that you came up with?
Again, in this particular case, I made 2 assumptions, that there were only 2 donors to this mixed stain on the scrotum, and that, in this case, Phil Spector was one of the donors. Lana Clarkson, for the foreign types that I did find, was consistent or could have originated those foreign types. So the frequency estimate gives you some idea of how common or how many other individuals out there by chance would also be included as the minor donor on that particular sample. And the frequency estimate, given those assumptions, for the Caucasian population was 1 in 94,000. And the reason the number is low is there weren't a lot of DNA markers that gave a full genetic type consistent with her reference sample. In fact, I was only able to use 3 of the 6 where I could clearly see foreign DNA that could have come from Lana Clarkson.
Okay. So putting this in sort of a, you start testing people one after the other, 93,199 would find other profiles evidenced in this sample.
No, that's I need to look at 90,000 people and the person would also be included. I would have to look at a group of 94.
Okay, I'm just gonna leave the camera off.
And all the foreign types were consistent. Each one that was foreign was consistent with Lana Clarkson. Is that true?
She had those types, that's correct.
Okay. Now you also did a amylase test on this particular sample. Is that true?
Yes.
And it was positive. Next in order.
6 top.
C. going to ask you to just look at this yourself and tell me whether you recognize what it is.
Yes, this about earlier, that was included in the sexual assault kit from Phil Spector.
Now, as part of your laboratory procedures, do you keep records of when you get evidence, what evidence you get, what you do with evidence, and is done by your crime laboratory? Do you keep those records and retain them so that you would always have a documentation as to the type of work that you do?
Yes.
In fact, you're required, Mr. Jackson asked a number of questions about lab certification. You're required to keep these records in your laboratory. Give opinions, and to do the testing that you do, you have to carefully document your receipt of evidence, what you do with it, how you repackage it, things of that nature. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if you don't keep records, then basically you wouldn't be able to operate as a certified laboratory doing DNA work. Is that correct?
That's right. If we got accredited and it was shown that our record keeping was a little lax, that'd be definitely something we would have to improve before we would be accredited.
Okay, and you rely upon your record keeping as part of your evaluation of a case. In other words, the fact that you do keep records of receiving evidence and handling of the evidence. In other words, that's all part of the scientific procedure that allows you to do the type of work you do and come to court and give opinions such as you've given in this case.
Well, I wouldn't say it's part of the scientific procedure, but it would be part of the chain of custody of trying to determine when a kit was submitted, when did it go to evidence, under what lab receipt number, what day it was transferred to a particular individual, and so on. Basically following it through the laboratory. And it's done a few ways, sometimes in handwritten notes by the analyst, but it's also done electronically through a computer system that we have in the laboratory called the Evidence Tracking System, or ETS.
Okay, and you rely upon this evidence tracking system and also the documentation of your receipt of evidence in giving opinions about a case. In other words, if you didn't have a chain of custody on an item that you were going to test, you would have to get that before you could really give an opinion on that subject, correct?
Well, if you asked me what day I got a piece of evidence, I would either find it in my case notes or part of the evidence tracking system. It wouldn't have anything to do, as far as my opinion, if the DNA matched a person or not. But it would clarify or give the answer to when I received that particular piece of evidence.
Okay, in quadruple C, that document that I just handed you, or no, excuse me,
Sextuplet.
Sextuple C. Sextuple C. That's one of the many chain of custody documents, records that you have in your file. Is that correct?
This form has nothing to do with when it was received in the laboratory. This form, like we described before, is filled out by the forensic nurse practitioner, and it has nothing to do with when the kit actually came into the laboratory or where the different transfers occurred.
Okay, do you look at that form to basically see whether or not the evidence that is listed on there, and that's a multi-page form, I just gave you one page, but do you look at it to see if it, one comports to the other?
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll read the form that is filled out by the nurse and compare it to the items in the actual sexual assault kit. And then there's also other information on the kit as far as when the incident or alleged incident occurred, when the sample was collected, how much time frame lapsed in between. And then it also has information on the subject or whoever the individual was where the kit was collected from.
Okay, and you basically take into consideration all that information so that you can intelligently analyze items that are in the kit. Is that correct?
Yeah, at times it is helpful for us to try to determine, if we're not going to look at everything in the kit, what should we concentrate on first? If the victim said she was raped, vaginally, then we may concentrate on the vaginal swabs first. Or if it was an oral copulation only and nothing occurred vaginally or rectally, then we might choose to look at the oral samples first. So we do use it to help us guide
Why
what
are we
items we're going to
talking
look
about
at initially
this?
if we're not going to look at them all at one time.
Okay, and that exhibit that you have, sextuple C, is basically one of the, is part of your case file that you looked at and you considered before you tested the items in the kit, correct?
Right. Again, it is a form that is contained in the sexual assault kit. We remove it and put it into the case file.
Okay, and did you compare that form that came with the kit, the one that you have the face page now, and to make sure that it was what it purported to be? In other words, that the collection items matched the collection paperwork?
I believe I would have done that, yes.
Okay, that's part of your normal procedure, is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. And that particular kit had the name of Philip Spector on it, is that correct?
That's correct.
And that particular kit was the one that had the scrotum swab that you have given testimony on regarding the mixed sample, is that true?
Yes.
Did it also have some swabs from the left hand and right hand?
Yes, it did.
Okay, and so they were part of the kit, is that also true?
That's true, that's
Okay,
correct.
and did you do anything with those left and right hand swabs?
Yes.
Did you, let's talk about a right hand swab. Did you analyze that to determine whether or not you had suitable quantities of DNA to get a result?
Yes, I did.
And did you get a result?
Yes.
And did you get a result that was consistent with one person or more than one person?
The result was consistent with with a mixture, number one, and it was consistent with coming from 2 individuals.
Okay.
On the right-hand sample.
And was the major contributor to the right-hand swab sample, was it Philip Spector?
Yes.
And you would expect that since it was taken from his hand, is that true?
That's correct.
Was there a minor contributor that was consistent with Lana Clarkson?
Yes.
And how did you make that determination?
Again, when we have a mixture, we first try to determine how many individuals could have donated to that mixture. In this case, it was consistent with 2. And everywhere there was a foreign DNA type, I would examine that and take into consideration Lana Clarkson's reference sample to see if this hand sample had a foreign type, does Lana Clarkson have that type? And that's how I would do the comparison.
Okay, and basically you compared the minor contributor alleles to Lana Clarkson, and each one of the minor contributor alleles were consistent with Lana Clarkson's DNA profile, correct?
Correct.
Now, did you do a statistical frequency on that particular sample?
Yes.
And what did you find?
On this particular sample, there was more information as to the second donor. The same assumptions were made as on the scrotum sample, but because there was more foreign types detected, the number is higher. And in this case, the frequency estimate, given the 2 assumptions I previously stated, the frequency of occurrence for the Caucasian population is 1 in 406 trillion. That's with a T.
Okay, and the same analysis, in other words, if you took that number of people, then you might find one person within that group that was consistent with Lana Clarkson, correct?
Another person in the group that could have also donated the foreign types.
Okay. And you also subjected that right-hand swab to a Kastle-Meyer presumptive blood test. Is that true?
Yes,
And your result was that it was negative. Is that correct?
that's correct.
Now, in the left-hand swab, you also found a mixture. Is that also correct?
At one particular DNA marker, there was a foreign type that could not have been donated from Phil Spector. The left-hand sample gave only enough DNA to do the one test, so I was only able to get 9 DNA marker results. One of those 9 gave one type that could not have come from Phil Spector.
Okay, so there was one foreign allele at one location that was foreign to Mr. Spector on his left-hand swab. Is that true?
Yes.
And or were you able to say how many people might have been able to contribute that particular allele?
No, it's so little information with that one type that I'm not able to make a comparison of who could be included as a possible donor.
Okay.
There's just not enough genetic information from the one type at the one marker.
Okay. If I could have a minute, Your Honor?
Yes.
Now, in addition to the sexual assault kit that you processed for Lana Clarkson, we talked about that. Some of the samples that we talked about for Mr. Spector, the scrotum swab. Did you also or was there also a swab in Mr. Spector's sexual assault kit that was labeled a penile swab?
Yes.
Okay, did you test that for genetic markers?
Yes, I did.
And did you find that it had, well, first of all, did you do a presumptive blood test on it?
Check my report. Yes, I did. The results for the KM presumptive blood test was negative.
And did you determine whether or not it had a mixture of DNA on it or one person's DNA?
Yes, the DNA types obtained from the penis sample from Mr. Spector was consistent with originating from 2 individuals, so it was a mixed sample.
Okay, and did you include or exclude Lana Clarkson?
Lana Clarkson is excluded as being a donor to that mixture.
Did you get a positive amylase result on that?
Yes.
And did you get did you do a microscopic analysis of the cells that were in that particular sample?
I'd have to check my case file for that.
Okay, why don't you take a minute and do that?
Yes, I did do a microscopic exam on a portion of that particular sample.
And did you see nucleated epithelial cells?
Yes, I saw a few in that particular sample.
Okay, and we've already discussed what they consist of. And were you able to compare the major profile, and did it come back to Mr. Spector?
Yes, the major profile from the mixed sample is consistent with originating from Phil Spector.
Okay, and the minor profile basically is unknown. Is that your testimony?
Yes.
Okay. Did this particular sample, Mr. Renteria, did it get processed the same time as that reagent blank is, one that you basically got some of your DNA in?
Yes.
Okay, and do you have the table of results that shows the results for this particular sample?
Yes.
Okay, and then I gave you an exhibit before, 6 N's, NN, or maybe it was 5, let me make sure. But it shows the table of your DNA results, or your profile. Do you have that with you?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember what exhibit number it was?
5N. No,
Okay.
Is that an N? It looks like N's.
Yeah, it
5
looks
N's.
like N's.
Yeah.
Okay, and what I'd like you to do is to look at your report and your table of results and tell me whether or not your DNA profile can be excluded from this sample.
Well, I could tell you now without even looking at it, I did examine that as a possibility when I first got the results, and my DNA is not on that particular sample.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Renteria. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Redirect.
Thank you, Mr. Renteria, I'm going to try to walk through this a little bit quicker, if I can. First of all, based on Mr. Plord's latest couple of questions, Ms. Clarkson's DNA was found on the defendant's right-hand swab, correct?
Well, he's asking if it's correct, so he can answer yes or no.
If I could just reword that statement, that
Absolutely.
the foreign types found on that particular sample, which was a mixed sample, is consistent with originating from Lana Clarkson.
Okay. And it's also consistent with originating from others that may be in a pool, a random pool that would be put together, correct?
Yeah, it would be highly unlikely for that particular sample, the right-hand sample, because that sample from Mr. Spector gave information about the number of KN was 406 trillion.
Okay.
So I wouldn't expect anyone else, unless Ms. Clarkson had an identical twin,
Right.
to have that particular profile.
Significantly larger population than the Earth,
Yes.
correct? And significantly insofar as you are comfortable saying that you would not expect any other human being on Earth to have that same, the same genetic markers.
That's right.
All right. However, conversely, with regard to the sample that Mr. Plord brought up about Mr. Spector's scrotum, the consistent markers were such that you could only say that 1 out of 94,141 people would be expected to be grouped together before one of those individuals could have those same markers.
I could have gone my whole life without hearing that word come out of Alan Jackson's mouth.
Or you'd expect statistically for them to have the same markers, correct?
Yeah, to be included as a potential donor for those foreign types. That's correct.
So in other words, based on those statistics, that's a very, very, very low number in your field, correct?
That's right.
In the field of DNA.
In the DNA field, using STRs, that is a low number.
You use numbers like trillion, quadrillion, quintillion, correct?
Correct.
I mean, numbers with like 18 zeros following the real number, correct? The integer, whatever it's called.
Yes.
Yeah. And this is a number with 3 zeros following it, correct? 94,000 and some change.
Correct.
So in other words, you would expect randomly or statistically for even thousands of people in the state of California to have those same genetic markers.
Yes.
Are you aware of here in California, the Los Angeles under one roof, right?
I'm not aware of the number. I'm not aware of that number.
Under one roof, that assumes a fact and evidence absent a big roof.
That would be a very large roof. I didn't mean that literally. I will rephrase that.
I'll let you go with that, all right?
Okay. In other words, that is a number so low that you would not, as an expert, say that Lana Clarkson's DNA appeared on Phil Spector's scrotum. You would not say that, correct?
Correct. That's
Okay.
correct.
And the last point that I think Mr. Plord was making with you before he sat down, I want to make sure I get this correct. During the course of analyzing the penal swab that Mr. Plord brought up, you developed Mr. Spector's DNA on that swab, which would be expected, correct?
Yes.
Yet you developed a third party's DNA, or portions of the markers, that are not, certainly they're not from you, or any contamination, correct?
Correct.
You've ruled yourself out.
Yes.
And they're not from Miss Clarkson, correct?
That's correct.
That those markers or that genetic material is from some person other than Philip Spector and Lana Clarkson, a third party, correct?
Correct.
You don't know when that was deposited in the sex kit. I'll leave it at that and try to remain somewhat dignified about this.
Yes. I don't know when.
Okay, you can't say a time frame or anything like that. We talked about that yesterday, correct?
Correct.
All right. I want to move back to a couple of things that Mr. Plourde brought up yesterday, specifically starting with the luminol. And I'm going to jump around just a little bit, but there's a couple of points I want to make before I sit down. Luminol is considered a much more sensitive test than KM or Kessel-Meyer testing, correct?
Correct.
Yet it's less specific. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. That jumbles around in my mind. It may jumble around in others. What do you mean by more sensitive yet less, more sensitive yet less specific? What do you mean by that?
Well, the more sensitive means that you need less blood to get a positive result. If you had a very dilute sample of blood, you're more likely going to get a positive result with the luminol than the KM reagent. So it's more sensitive in that respect. More specific means that the KM reagent will give a positive result with less items other than blood. Now, luminol I talked about yesterday basically reacts to metal, and it reacts to the iron in the blood. But as we all know, there's metal all over the place in different environments. So if you had metal shavings, let's say on a carpet, you would get a positive luminol. So it's less specific when you're looking for just blood. So that's the two differences.
So going back to that, it sounds like, well, using some numbers you gave us yesterday, the sensitivity of a KM test or a Kessel-Meyer test is about 1 part in 10,000. If there's 1 part in 10,000 out using the field study materials that you use, the swabs out in the field, if there's 1 part in 10,000 parts of other material, you would expect the KM test to render a positive result, then you'd go on with your analysis, correct?
That's correct.
Yet you're aware that luminol is as sensitive as 1 part, picking up 1 part in 5 million, correct?
That's possible. That dilute, that is possible.
I mean, it is substantially more sensitive, correct?
That's right. It's a totally different test, and the testing is done totally differently in the field. I mentioned before, and I think you mentioned, that the KM test is done by an indirect method, bringing up a sample on a swab and then testing the swab. Luminol doesn't work that way. You have to spray the luminol on the actual item, so it's sprayed directly on the item, and that's one of the reasons it's more sensitive.
And that luminol, with that level of sensitivity, was utilized on the carpet area in between Ms. Clarkson and the stairway wall, correct?
Correct.
And you got no positive results.
Correct.
You used that luminol with that level of sensitivity on the stairway wall itself, on that brown paneled stairway wall itself, and you got no positive results, correct?
Correct.
You utilized that luminol over toward the base of the stairs, going into the bathroom, correct?
Yes.
All right, and you also used that luminol in the bathroom itself and did get a positive result where the rag was lying, where that bloody diaper was lying. But other than that, no positive results, correct?
Correct.
No indication based on the luminol that any blood or blood material, tissue, in the form of blood, was sprayed or shot across that room onto the carpet, onto the wall, onto the stairway, anything like that. No suggestion of that based on your luminol test, correct?
Correct.
Take a look at what we've previously marked as People's 95. I want to go back to that for just a second. This is a set of photographs that we've previously marked to sort of highlight what you were doing around the banister, the base of the banister area. And although we've talked about these photographs being a little bit washed out, do they at least suggest the appropriate areas that you were looking at this curled banister in photograph A, B, C, and of course D?
Yes.
Okay. Let's highlight photograph C if we could. Do you see the discoloration or the off-colored area at the forwardmost curvature of the banister here?
Yes.
All right. Is that the area that you suggested? That's actually a much better picture when it's enlarged. You can see what appears to be off-color reddish material here and off-color reddish material here as well as here. Correct?
Yes.
Does that material appear to be flowing consistent with gravity off the edge of that banister?
Yeah, it's consistent with some kind of movement downward. Again, that little lip or edge of the banister starts at kind of a horizontal level and then starts curving until it's vertical, then it even goes the other way.
All right.
On around it. And the blood was deposited on the horizontal surface of that curvature all the way down to the vertical surface.
Okay.
So it did appear consistent with having some flow activity towards going down.
If you and you luminoled this area, correct?
Yes.
And why did you luminol that area if you could grossly see blood?
Well, again, we're dealing with the garden sprayer, and you were just spraying different areas. I wanted to see if there might have been any other blood stains around the visible part that I couldn't see. So what I did is came down the handrail and in this area, and even though there was blood there and I had already collected it, I went ahead and sprayed that entire handrail. And of course, in the area where you see the photo with the blood staining, that was a very strong positive because there still was residual blood in that area.
When you wet that stain with the luminol, is it possible for the blood to have become wet in kind of mixing with the luminol and begun to drip or move?
That's possible.
Okay. So if in fact it had dripped off that handrail, say after you wet it substantially with the luminol, you would not have necessarily picked up that blood stain that then dripped off, correct?
That's correct.
Why not?
Because it would have dripped off the handrail. It wouldn't have added any forensic value to that particular stain because I know it would have dripped from that area.
Right.
And that area was already collected.
No evidentiary value to you at all?
Right.
All right.
All right, let's go ahead and take our afternoon recess. Keep in mind the admonition, ladies and gentlemen, 15 minutes, please. Thank you.
Okay. So they are going to stream jury instructions. So I want to watch that because I am curious. But before we do that, I want to find the yoga song, the yoga pants song. And if I get copyright claimed, I'll just delete this part. It's not long. Yeah, we should have. Man, I did not expect all that. I don't know why they did a grape kit anyways, or SA kit, whatever you want to call it. I was surprised there was a mix too, because I didn't think they did that. Oh, I also have a theory about why it was on jury. Because maybe they thought that she was like, oh my gosh, I just slept with that to further my career.
Song right here. You guys want to hear the dumbest song I've ever written? The other stuff is really cool. This is gonna be dumb. I would quilt a chicken feather. Okay, dumbest song ever. This is just a little slice of life. Here we go. My wife was out for 3 days to visit her mom. I was supposed to cook and clean while she was gone. Somehow she never buckles under all the demands. I had to know her secret, I had to understand. Well, I thought it might be coffee, but that gives her the shakes. It might be soap operas, but she says they're too fake. It's not the car she drives or what she puts in her hair. I realized it's got to be something that she wears. Yoga pants. She wears them all day. Yoga pants. At work and at play. Yoga pants. What's all the fuss? What makes them so special that they keep them from us? Well, any normal person would leave it alone, but I'm not a normal person and nobody was home. My wife was out of town and the kids were outside. I went into the bedroom and decided I would try yoga pants. So stretchy and thin, yoga pants, feels like my own skin, yoga pants, where you been all my life? I've never done yoga, but these make me want to try yoga pants. So soft and so sleek, yoga pants, feels good on my cheek, yoga pants. These are the best. If you're waiting for a video, don't hold your breath.
That's my favorite Tim Hawkins song. He's hilarious. If you look him up, his name's Tim Hawkins. He's a Christian comedian, but if you're not a Christian and you're not into that stuff, he has a lot of stuff like that that has not anything to do with that stuff. So he's really, really funny. Okay, so I did set it up. I think I have it set up to redirect. So we're going to go over there and listen to jury instructions. And I don't know what we're going to do for verdict watch. We can court hop or something, I guess. I don't know. So I'll see you over there. Bye.